Rivers, they're going to let him go. Rivers attacks the basket, drive, shot, challenge, it's going to be good. 4.9 seconds, we're tied. It's 73.
Ooh la la,
Down the court, Luke Rounds. Luke Rounds with 2 seconds. Jumps the ball. Jump shot, stand. Good shot. Noles win. Noles win. Michael Stairs Temple with no timeout. Florida State beats Duke 76 to 73. The little team that just did.
All right, everyone, welcome to the second edition of the Nole Hoops Authority podcast. I'm here once again with Anthony Scadillo. I am Perry Doobie. We listened back to our first podcast and realized how overwhelmingly long and tiring it was to listen to over an hour of FSU basketball content. So I promise we're keeping this one shorter. If you're watching on YouTube, we're both wearing our N7 jerseys because we're so proud of them, and we therefore look even more ridiculous than normal. But let's get this started. We just want to do a real quick half hour on the roster. And so I think the best way to start that is with what we usually agree is the most important position on the court. And I think especially this year for this Seminoles team, it certainly will be. Let's talk about the guards. Anthony, I have a feeling I know where you're going to want to start, but why don't you kick us off?
I'll go in a little bit different of a direction than you think, because obviously like there's one player listed as a guard that could really guard the 1 through 5. But I think the leadership and the play and how we come out this year really starts with MJ Walker. MJ Walker, I think, is the veteran leader that has been through the last few years, had other people kind of carry the team. And now he's going to wear that crown as the person who these younger guys are going to look up to when the going gets tough through the ACC, the trials and tribulations of playing the big boys, the Dukes, the Virginias. Carolina looks pretty good with their big men. So he's going to be the guy that's going to be resilient year in and year out for us. But obviously the offense and kind of the team is going to run through Scotty Barnes, 6'9", 230, powerhouse, comes in with intensity, his ceiling is where the ceiling of the team goes, in my eyes. I think he can carry us to an Elite Eight, if not further. Everything out of camp from Ham says he's developed from other players. Malik Osborne spoke very highly of him as well. It sounds like he's ready to literally hit the floor running. So excited to see him go. You get other guys in the mix. Dara Calhoun, going to be, in my eyes, I think he's one of the biggest X factors on this team. Scores in bunches. Everyone on the team, including Ham, has been exemplary of his athleticism and what he can do both on the offensive and defensive side. Speaking of defense, Anthony Polite, one of the best defenders, not only in the ACC, but the country. And then you got a guy like Raekwon Evans, who's probably going to come off the bench and be a starting caliber ACC point guard for you in a second unit. This is a unit that's at strong, experienced, but also brings some youth and energy that I think it's going to need to carry us through the ACC.
Yeah, and just to add to what you were saying there, I couldn't agree more about MJ Walker. I think that we saw him develop so much last year. And I don't think anyone's going to question that if we need a big shot at the end of the game, he's going to be the shot taker. If it's, a 3-point shot or a deep 2. But I actually think that we saw him be much improved at drawing fouls and going to the hoop. And I think that he is even going to be the guy to make that drive. I think a lot of people are thinking that it's going to be Barnes who's going to be the one carrying that Trent Forrest role of going to the hoop if we got 10 seconds left. I just don't see it. I think it's going to be MJ. It's always been that senior leader for us. It was Terrence Mann before it was Forrest, and I really think it's going to be MJ. I'm really excited to see what Scotty can do. There's so much we could comment on. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I think his floor is to play like Patrick Williams. And based on the way everyone talks about him, especially Ham himself, he talks very cautiously about everyone he has on this roster and anyone he's ever coached, except for Scotty Barnes. He says that he's ahead of schedule. He says that he's played better competition than anyone they've ever brought in. And he says that he's basically ready to be a college player. So I'm very anxious to see what type of ball control role Ham puts him in tonight against UNF, and to see exactly how he handles that. Sadar is another guy that I think is super interesting. He's a guy who we are seeing the comments from everyone, from Stan Jones and from him, as like this guy is ridiculously talented, but he has no idea what he's doing. Just is a firecracker. You light him off and it might result in something good or it might result in something bad. But Ham even said it himself. He's like, this guy's so talented. I can't limit him. So we're going to let him get out there and run. So I'm excited to see about that. But as far as the things that I'm really confident in, I'm confident in Anthony Polite being a difference maker on this team. I said this on Twitter and caught a little bit of slack for it, but I think he has the potential to not have a full Devin Vassell season, but to have a DV light type season where we see this guy coming in and being an elite 3-and-D guy. Obviously, he turned the ball over way too much in the past few seasons, and 2 seasons ago, he was the type of guy that if he got on the court, we all put our head in our hands. But he was arguably the best defender on the team last year. And I think this year he might be the best defender in the entire ACC. So I'm really excited to see if he takes a step forward. And then you got a bunch of wild cards out there. You've got guys like Nathaniel Jack, and we've got Ray Evans, who I think is going to be a huge difference maker. He could be the guy who takes the shot at the end of the game for all we know. It's just an exciting unit, and I think it is the one, like you said, that carries us through.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, just to kind of harp on Evans a little bit, like he was the guy when Forrest went out with his turf toe last year a little bit, that towards the end of the season, once he got into game shape, because he wasn't really in there the beginning of the year, towards the end of the year, he looked comfortable and he looked good. He was doing those same floaters. He was starting to shoot from 3 and he was getting to the basket. I mean, he looked like a smaller guy because everyone on the court is 6'5" or above, but he's 6'4" himself. So it's not like he's a small guard going in there. The only small guard that we have going in there could be Jack, but you know what Jack's going to do? He's going to jack up threes if he gets the ball.
He ain't going in anywhere. He's standing out in that corner, maybe if we let him get in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Evans was shooting well at the end of the season, driving to the hoop, drawing fouls. Everyone said he was an elite JUCO prospect, and he was hurt all of last year. And we kind of saw that at the end. It's going to be awesome to see if he can play up to that level, especially because he has arguably the most important role on this team, because I think he's going to play in sets with Scotty, and then he's also going to lead that second unit. I think he's going to be the one for that second unit, because I just don't believe that Anthony Polite has taken that far a step forward to be the primary ball handler. So we'll see what happens there. But let's move on to the forwards. What are you seeing there, and what is probably what I'd have to say our thinnest unit on the team?
Yeah, I would agree. By far our thinnest unit, but I guess really when everyone is 6'7", 6'6" at the guard position, like, are you necessarily worried about your size and who you can use at the forward? Probably not, because we can mix and match as we go. I mean, Barnes is listed as a guard, but he's 6'10", he's 6'9". Like, he's not necessarily going to play the point for us. He's going to defend the best player on the other team. Whether that's a wing or whether that's someone that's a ball handler is to be determined. But I think you have like some of the most experienced guys at this position. While it might be the thinnest, you have guys like Osborne, who came in last year as a transfer and dominated for us. He immediately had an impact, whether it was him yelling, "Get off me" on every single rebound that he got, or
That's
throwing
not all
balls down the. We can keep it family friendly for the time being. Anybody who watches the game and has the volume on knows exactly what he's saying. Yeah. So, but he's that intensity guy. And I think the guy that, if he takes is this the year that Raekwon Gray takes the jump? Like, he's gotten better. He shows us spurts, because he'll show you being great and what he can do. He could score 10 points in 2 minutes. Like, he can shoot, he can get to every level of the court, and he could defend at every level of the court. And then he has 3 turnovers right after. So if he can kind of limit that and kind of hone in his offensive skill, he could be one of the top 3 players on this team. We just don't know. And then on the back end, what Ham calls the best shooter, what could be in FSU history, you have Wyatt Wilkes. I don't even know where Wyatt Wilkes fits into this team now. He's obviously an elite shooter. He's streaky a little bit, but if he can, he's not the most athletic guy, but if he could speed up his game a little bit, he's going to get some minutes, and he's going to be someone that can extend the court for us.
Yeah, I agree with all that, especially on the Wilkes front. I think those minutes are super important, is to see, can he eat up, 10 or even trending towards 20 minutes? And if he can do that and be even serviceable on defense, he's going to be a guy that extends out the opponent's defense because they know he can shoot. He might be hot or he might not be, but he can shoot. And he shot above, a 40% clip in ACC play last year. And so that's what's exciting about a guy like that when you're looking at kind of a thin unit is where does he fit in? But I couldn't agree more on the Osborne front. I don't have a lot to add. His intensity, the only thing I'll say is that coming out of camp, everybody's saying that he's shooting far better than he did last year. And he may start at the 5 for us. We'll talk about that in a second, but we all agree he's probably more of a 3 than anything else. And that's why he came to FSU. So I think he'll be primarily on the wing, and we'll see that a lot more than last year. But Gray is the X factor here. I almost feel not to the same level, not to keep comparing people to Devin Vassell, but I feel like we're getting a similar buzz out of Gray that we saw from Devin Vassell before last season, where people are saying like, yeah, this is an NBA prospect. If he can just hit some shots, he has a chance to be a first round pick. I think the difference is that Devin Vassell just hadn't played much and he had hit the shots. He just hadn't gotten a ton of time. Gray's played a ton and we just haven't seen him flash that ability yet. If he can learn to be smarter with the ball in transition, if he can learn to really take wise shots and make wise shots and also drive to the hoop to kick and draw fouls, he is going to be a guy that could change the entire dynamic for this team. And, I think that's exciting because we've just in addressing the guards and the forwards without even getting to our bigs, I think we've named 5 guys who I could see being drafted in the NBA at some point. And so that's very exciting. And I think I'll be anxious to see not only how Turk plays, but how much he weighs, because every season I feel like we're shocked at just how big he is. And so we'll see if that holds true this season. But from the pictures on Twitter, I think it will.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be a topic of conversation for anyone that's announcing our games. It's like the first time they've ever seen him and they find out he lost a bunch of weight and they harp on it the whole game when we know he's been losing weight since he got on campus. If you follow the team at all, I wish the guys over at ESPN would do a little more research and looking at a weight year over year, because he can be an elite player. He can guard guards. He can guard centers. He has the body to bang down low if he needs to. I think he also has the ability to stroke it from 3. So he's an enigma because he could be our Fiondu this year. I could easily see that happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And then let's talk bigs real quick. This is the unit that I think gets the least talk towards it. I think the best quote I've ever heard in my entire life was they were asking Ham about, all the new players. And they asked about Quincy Ballard, who's a true freshman. And Ham's entire quote was, "He's a freshman. He does not have much experience." End scene. Walked off the set. That's it. And so I don't think we're going to get much out of old Quincy this year. I think your Syracuse revenge game is down the tubes.
I could be off on that. I could be a little off.
But who knows? Ham shocks us every year. So he could play a factor. But let's talk primarily about, Balsa and then a real, unknown in Tanner Nagam.
Yeah. We'll start with what we do know, and that's Balsa. I think ACC play was a little much for him last year, but he gave us the minutes that we needed. We didn't need to go big last year in many games, and the games that we did, he was serviceable. I think it was a good year for him to experience the ACC. Obviously not a full season, but he got his feet wet in what the ACC will look like. And we're not going to rely on him necessarily for points, for carrying a team. I think he's perfect in what his role is going to be, maybe 10 to 15 minutes a game, subbing in and out. We do those hockey style lineups, but I do think that, he's not going to start. I don't think he starts for us, but I think he could take a nice little sophomore jump for us. He needed to develop his post-game offense, and obviously that's what Stan Jones is known for, developing the bigs. I think he's going to have a good year, and I think that next year is the year that he could potentially pop and be on the radar of a lot of these teams, because you can't teach his size. As far as tall T goes, I have no idea what to expect. It seems like, following him online seems like a little bit of a goofy guy, and I'm here for that. I'm here for the silliness of a team, because those are the guys that bring that smile every day, that kind of keep a team together, even when they're down. If you look at your teammate and he's cheering for you and he's smiling, but I also think that by mid-year, he could be one of our best players. So I'm not really sure what to expect. I would say tonight versus North Florida, limited minutes, he got to camp a little bit late. So I would say, we'll see. Mid-year, I think is going to be a big jump for him, but he has an extra year of eligibility, right? So I think we see him here for 2. And I think his development with Stan again is going to be massive, because him and Quincy as well have all the athleticism in the world for 7-footers. We've seen videos of Quincy dunking from the free throw line. Obviously, that doesn't make you a good center, but if you could jump through the roof, Ham is going to get you on the court, because you can play some defense, and he loves those big guys that can play defense. We have them every single year, and those 2 guys are going to develop into really nice pieces for us. I don't know what Tall T is going to be. I'm so excited to watch him, though. I think this is something that you and I have been talking about for a while, obviously, before we started this, but he could be an elite player. He was a legitimate NBA draft prospect and decided to come to college rather than go to the pros. And I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah, I'll start on that topic of Tall T. Tanner, what we're seeing in these comments, Ham does not ever shy away, and he has been very upfront that this guy is completely and utterly out of shape, that he has his hands on his knees constantly, and he's not able to keep up with the rest of the team because he hasn't been there, and he's used to, Ryerson is a well-regarded Canadian program, but it's just not the same as what you're running through ACC conditioning. And so I think that's definitely going to be a struggle. Ham was also saying how much he's struggling with these bigs on the boards. It's just a different world for him. And I'm sure that Malik Osborne, more than anybody, is giving him trouble because he's used to just being taller than everyone and just being able to overpower them because of that. And I think that a guy like Malik, who gets underneath you, maybe elbows you in the stomach and then pulls a rebound out of your hand, is something that's probably demoralizing. This guy who's built like the tree from Guardians of the Galaxy before he grows up. But it's the thing that I think is really sticking out to me is that Stan Jones in an interview commented on how well he shoots from 3. And I think we saw it in his Instagram videos and we saw these things and we're all like, yeah, that's awesome. But you don't really believe that from a 7'2" guy until you hear it from a coach. And for us to hear this guy could really stretch the floor, I think we'll see him, like you said, mid-year making a difference, but it's going to take a lot of time. I wouldn't be shocked if we don't see him for a single minute tonight. Nothing would shock me on how long they take to work this guy in, but I do think he's going to be an important part because Balsa, I expect to take a major step forward, but he's not a 25-minute a game type of guy. I don't think he ever will be at Florida State or in the pros. I think he is a role-playing big. One thing that is really exciting to me, particularly in ACC play, we saw him pass the ball at an elite level for a guy of his size. Mm-hmm. And if we can do that, especially with a guy like Scotty cutting from the top of the key, it's going to be really, really exciting for this team. So I'm really excited to see how he continues to develop that. But if he can get a little nastier in on the boards on the inside, and especially on the offensive glass, that's where I think we need him the most. Offensive glass, get us those boards and be able to kick it back out. We're going to be in good shape. So I think the fact that these guys are all going to come off the bench is a huge benefit. And I'm really excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing with having a guy like Osborne is that he's going to give it to you in practice the same way he's giving it to the other teams throughout the season. And for guys like Tanner and for guys like Balsa that need to grow up, that need to get big, and like you don't teach 7'1", 7'2", but you can't teach you can teach intensity. Like they need to adopt his style. And if they do, it's lights out. It's lights out because Balsa was already shooting from the elbows last year. He can extend out a little bit. He's not going to be a 3-point shooter, but like you said, his passing is elite. So to open up the inside of the court a little bit and have those slashers, we already know that MJ can slash. We know that Scotty's going to slash. We know that Dara can slash. Like we have guys that'll get to the basket if the opportunity is there. I think that really opens up the whole court, just like you said.
For sure. All right, now let's go into starting lineup, and this should be quick. Let's just say what we think the starting lineup. And usually for Ham, this does hold. Who he starts at the beginning of the season roughly is who he ends up starting throughout. But what do you think our general starting lineup is? And we know with FSU more than any other team, the starting lineup doesn't matter. It's just how Ham likes to roll out
Yeah.
his 27 guys. But who do you think starts for the most part of the season as the tip-off type guys?
Yeah, I think at the let's call them guards. At guard, we'll have MJ and we'll have Polite. I think when you go to the 3, you're going to have Scotty there. I think that more likely than not, you could bring in a guy. I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say that Dar starts. For us, and you play Scotty kind of at technically the 4, and then put Osborne at the 5.
So you think that's the starting lineup, even though we've got Scotty handling the ball up the court. You're going to say Polite, Dar, Walker, Osborne starts.
Yeah, because I think because Evans is going to be your handler off the bench, and I think Gray can come off the bench too and be that handler. I could also see Gray starting, so that's that's an easy one.
I was going to say, I'm definitely going to go different here. I think that the ultimate lock to start besides MJ Walker is Gray. I've never seen a player that Ham loves as much as Raekwon Gray. No matter what he does, he throws him out there. And so I absolutely think he's starting. I'll go Scotty as well. And then, I'm going to say Polite as well, and then Osborne. So I'll say that sets up with just for the purpose of where I think they're going to play their roles. Scotty at the 1, we'll have MJ at the 2, Polite at the 3. I think we all forget that Polite's a 6'6", 6'7" guy. And then we'll go Gray at the 4 and Osborne taking the tip. But as we've just said, that doesn't really matter. Who do you think the finishing lineup is? And this is a thing that we talk about a lot because last year we saw obviously Patrick Williams was in that finishing lineup. And that was the quote that Ham had after he got drafted 4th overall. They said, how could a guy who never started a game get drafted 4th overall? And Ham said he didn't start him, but he finished him. And so who do you think are those 5 guys we have out on the court to drive home a win?
That's tough. I think that's really tough. I mean, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Like, just hearing the way that Ham and the kind of players, and I know we spoke on this, talked about Dar and talked about Barnes, like it seems like those are going to be guys that really get like big time looks and big time minutes. Am I worried about Dar's defense? A little bit, but I also think like when we need buckets, I think he could be like that walking bucket for us. Like Vassell was our walking bucket last year when we needed a guy, and the year before that it was Fee. I think if Dar can play his game the way, I mean, obviously it's a big jump in competition, but he's going to be that guy. So I'm going to go Scotty, Dar, Gray, MJ, Polite. Oh, there's no center. Wait, there's no center there, is there? No, I think you need Osborne on the court. Okay. Scotty, Dar, Gray, Osborne, MJ.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go kind of off and contradict what I just said here. So I'm actually not going to put Gray in my finishing lineup. I'm going to go Scotty. I'm going to obviously go MJ. I'm going to agree with you on Dar. I think Dar is in that finishing lineup for sure. I think he adds that shooting element. I think hopefully he picks up the D towards the end. But then I'm going to go with Malik, and I'm going to go with Balsa. So I think it's going to be a bit of an odd lineup there, but I think that when you run out this type of team that we're going to run out and you have so many big dudes, if you can throw in a guy that big at the very end of the game, and I actually think that if we looked at the season in its entirety, Dom was arguably in the finishing lineup last year. I think Balsa is a guy that Ham's going to want to see in there at the very end to make sure that we can clean up the glass and intimidate with size and also spread the floor. And especially if he's passing well, I think that bodes extremely well. So that's what I think will be the finishing lineup. But this is all to say, neither of us has any idea, nor does anybody besides, the guys in that room. And they probably don't know now. So who the finishing lineup is tonight is certainly not who the finishing lineup is going to be in a month. So I think that's going to be a really interesting thing to see develop. But I'm anxious to see it. We both predicted 20-5 for the season. We lost a game. So unless we reschedule Gardner Webb, that would be 19-5 for both of us. Before we just really quickly talk UNF, do you want to revise that prediction, or are you going to stick with 5 losses?
I mean, it's hard to judge the teams that we're playing against based on the early season. I think we're seeing powerhouses kind of go down left and right. Obviously, Virginia takes an L. Duke doesn't look great in perimeter scoring. UNC just looks like they have a bunch of centers and guys that are going to jack up threes in hopes that their centers pick up the boards. I'm going to stick with 19-5. This could change easily in a week or 2 weeks, but early season teams are struggling. I think even we could come out a little bit cold tonight, and I think we could still cover and come out cold. But no, 19-5 is a good place to sit right now.
Yeah, to the opposite effect of what you just said, I could see us winning by 45 tonight and me thinking we're going to go undefeated. So I'm sure whatever happens tonight is vastly going to skew what I think about the rest of the season. But I also somehow managed, even though it was only a week ago, to make some of the worst basketball predictions ever made, and calling Georgia Tech a tournament team, the 5th best team in the ACC, Virginia, the best team in the country. Indiana was going to win the Big 10. They looked a little bit better today, but certainly made some terrible predictions. So I wouldn't take anything I said to heart, but I'm going to stick with 19-5. I think we've seen teams like Louisville look a little bit better than we thought they were going to. I think we just take those 5 L's in an unconventional season, but we both said that we're both kind of being conservative. So hopefully it is better than that. But I mainly just wanted to use that segment to own how terrible my first picks in that first pod were.
It's early. Yeah, you see, everybody's getting warmed up.
Yeah, it's going to be number 1, Virginia, number 2, Indiana, number 3, Georgia Tech, number 4, Florida State at the end there. Number 4 again. But let's very, very, very quickly just go over UNF. Obviously, it's a 25.5 point spread. Just as an overview of this team, we see them do pretty much what a lot of these small conference teams that have been very successful in the past few years do, and it's shoot half or more of their shots from the 3-point line, or I should say beyond the 3-point line. UNF shoots so far this season about 49% from 3-point land. I believe it was even higher than that last year. So it's certainly what we should expect to see tonight. If you want to look out for one guy, they've got a kid, he's a junior now, Carter Hendrickson, who's averaging this season so far 12 3-pointers a game attempts, and he's actually making 37% of them. So look out for that forward. I think he's the one who maybe could give us trouble, but obviously I don't think this is a close game. It's more just for us to see, how does Scotty play against the guards, and how does this team roll out the 11-12 deep. But just for our own fun and games, give me a score prediction.
Man, so I could see this kind of going a few different ways. Like I said, I think this is going to be an easy win for us. I think there's been some funny backdoor covers so far this year in college basketball, and I don't necessarily think that'll be that way with this game. I could see this being like a 95-50 victory for us. I think the only thing that could kind of mess up the spread that we have, or the score itself, is how many guys and how many minutes we get. Because I know this is like a big first. It's not a scrimmage, obviously, but it's a big first game for us because we didn't have that Gardner Webb game. So you're going to want to get a lot of guys, I think, some minutes tonight. And then towards the end, I think you'll see like a closing lineup maybe out there in not necessarily at the end of the game, but a little bit in the second half to see how that unit kind of comes out and scores. But yeah, we're going hockey lineups tonight. Everybody's going to get some minutes.
All right. I tend to agree there. I think that we've heard that the team is practicing more offense than they ever have before, and kind of going to let the defense ride. So I'll say 89, and then I'm going to go 66. I think UNF scores a little bit more than we'd like them to. I think it's probably uncomfortable for a couple minutes during this game, but they are an 0-3 team who has lost by very wide margins to NC State and Miami, who we both agree are less superior ACC teams than Florida State. So hopefully we can really play well throughout and get ready for next week when we face two good teams in Indiana and Florida, even though they have not appeared to be so yet. But with that, we have hit our half-hour mark. I think this was a much better job of staying brief. Enjoyed it very much. And we'll be back with some reactions and certainly a preview of the game next week. Anthony, appreciate it. Always a fun time, and go Noles.
Go Noles.